Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today, the final normal battle of Heroes Jubilee versus Lumi. And Normal Battle 3 wants us to use a Space Magic team. So if you have the Divine General team, you probably have at least Raphael. So he can do some pretty good damage in a single target setting. So this should be easier, quote unquote, than the other two stages, because light and dark were not really focused that much this month. And I mean, we did get a light and dark unit, but they don't do shit for damage. So disclaimer number one is please use this video as a guide. Your results will vary because I have different units than you do at different dupe levels. Just use this video as an example of how to team build and what you're looking for in this fight, and then build what you have available. Disclaimer number two is that these are the units I use for protection gauge, and these are the units I use for skill point gain. And disclaimer number three is don't forget to go into your town of Tempest and optimize your space building, so hopefully Raphael can do as much damage as possible. But with that said, let's jump in. Alright, Normal Battle 3 is a single target fight, wants us to use a space magic team, which thankfully there are quite a few space units nowadays. And this is actually built towards a blue stacking team, so it kind of wants you to use Visions of Coleus or Primal Demon. So those are going to be two very useful teams for this fight. This snake thing doesn't have a lot going on for it. It's got quite a bit of HP, but it's got it at this point, because we're doing a lot of damage on normal orbs. It does have crit and crit damage. It does stun, 70% chance, so there's a small chance that you might not be stunned. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And then lowers our crit resistance. So in order to get max bonus, again, you have to not take a lot of damage from this thing. I haven't even hit max. I'm still 57 points off, and unless I figure out what's going on, I don't really care, because 57 points is not a huge deal when we're doing almost 1 million just on normal battles alone. So first team is this Exalted Champions / new Blanc team. If you have Raphael instead, I think that could also work if you don't have Blanc. It's just that Raphael's doubling up on the buff, because we already get space buff from Belzard. It's not as high, but we are still getting it, so because I 120 Blanc, I'm going to use Blanc. And then we've got the new Isis, we've got the new Diablo, and the new Hero, and Guy. So obviously this is quite a whale-focused team. I will have a not-so-whaley team with the same kind of build in the next clip, in case I assume a lot of people can't run this. So turn one, we're just going to use the 4 blues, because that is enough to get us a protection gauge. Not a super huge deal. We've got extra protection gauge underneath. Well, Blanc has protection gauge on turn 2, so that's nice. And then I think Isis doesn't have a space unit underneath her. I think she's got Hinata. So we're going to leave her in the back for now. I might have changed it to where it's actually a space character. But let's use a stack of the weakness resistance, because we're not really going to have to alt swap a lot with this team. Guy's going to be able to alt rush us, because he alt rushes space and wind, and Blanc is space, so this works. So here we take 1 damage. That's good right there. If we continue to take 1 damage, then we would have hit max, but we don't. So green buff from Diablo, 50% gauge increase, and then we'll bring the hero in and we will rewind this turn, and then we'll use Velzard to convert the entire hand to greens. And then after that, we also have enough to alt rush Blanc once, and twice, technically, because I totally forget that the hero's rewind gives us extra alt gauge. Not that we were really going to need it, because we were going to get the EX alt regardless off of these orbs, so the 30% unnecessary, but I guess it's cool. So here we get the EX alt. Blanc is ready to go. We can't hold her buff because it's an alt buff, but we can hold the Pierce buff and the Synergy buff from Guy, and we're not going to have enough points to use the big time Synergy buff from the Diablo, so we're just going to go with the 40% from Guy instead, because next turn we got to use the 90 point alt buff and the alt resistance down debuff from Isis. So we already have a lot of points taken up by that. And if we can get synergy on the team still, then we'll do a lower cost one instead. We're still going to do enough damage here, so that's not the problem. It's just that taking damage on this AoE tail swipe is what I'm really worried about. Because here, Like, Guy guards and takes 47. The hero got pierced, unfortunately, so she took like 400. So we're already out of the max score area. But we'll put the debuff on, and that leaves us just enough points to use the big-time alt buff from Blanc. So if this were Raphael, maybe you'd use the big-time synergy buff instead of the element buff, because we're already getting an element buff from Velzard. But yeah, that's up to you and what you have available, and then we're just going to nuke since he's so low. And Blanc does 4.8 million damage, because Jesus Christ, of course she does. And that is enough to do damage cap, but we did take a little bit of damage there, so there's my 57 points down the drain. But still turn 3, so we've hit max turn bonus. 5.2 million total damage done, because he has 500,000 HP to begin with. And yeah, that's my best score currently, and the only way it's going to get better is if I max it out. But again, I'm not really worried about 50 points. So let's move on. Alright, so the budget version of this team, not going to do as much damage, unfortunately, but it's still got the same kind of idea as that first team. Still Velzard, bringing Veldora, bringing Rimuru for the attack buff. Guy is still here to alt rush and give us synergy. We brought the OG Space Hero for the rewind and the crit, and then we're going to nuke with Violet because she has her own massive magic damage buff this time. So it's still the same concept, it's just slightly different team build with very different results, unfortunately, because Blanc is just... she does that damage with a whole bunch of other stuff. We don't have Pierce on this team. The crit buff is unfortunately not as strong as, you know, what could have been a 100% crit damage buff, but hey, we don't talk about that here. So we'll bring the hero in, we'll send all these orbs. This team, since we're not going to hit damage cap, I'm not worried about taking damage here. So the snake hits me for 1, okay, cool, yeah, whatever. And we got 4 violet orbs, that's good, so we'll rewind, and then we'll bring in Veldora for the green buff, and then we'll use Velzard to orb change, and that will get us a lot right there, because we got 4 violet orbs, and then next turn on the rewind, we'll just alt rush her, and we'll cover that last remaining, 75% gauge, and then we can use Violet's magic buff and send her away. So, I mean, this is working pretty well so far. Rewind kicks in. Alright, 148 points, so alt rush, magic buff, and the synergy buff as well, because we can use it, and then Violet goes away. And then we'll send this entire 6-hand of orbs against the snake, with Guy going last, because he's going to do massive damage, because he's been magic buffed and synergy buffed and element buffed and dragoed. So he's going to almost kill it, which, if you're not careful, he might accidentally kill it, if he like crits or pierces or something. But yeah, he's quite low now. So we take that, we got a random cheeky counter, but thankfully it was from Veldora and not Guy, and now we have enough points to where we can bring in Violet, use the attack buff from Rimuru, and then bring the hero in, and that's pretty much all we can use. If I could have used another stack of the synergy resistance, I would have, but it's a bit too expensive, so we'll just go with the guarantee crit and the 30% crit down. We'll use the element buff from Velzard again, and we'll nuke, and she does 1.4 million. So yeah, definitely not 4.8 million damage, but hey, it's the budget team, more free to... well, maybe not free to play friendly, but more friendlier to players, because it's not literally every single new featured unit that has come out this month. But there we go. There's a good alt for you. Let's move on. Alright, the team that this was actually meant for, Visions of Coleus. We've got us 2 green starting hands, so we brought the free-to-play Water Rimuru, one of the characters that I tell people to pick up out of the flashback shop, because he's good on a lot of blue teams. Visions of Coleus, Lumi, Rimuru, Blanc, Violet, and Jean. Jean is going to be our main damage dealer because she has that personal synergy power buff, so we're going to be looking to get her alt. One important thing I did on this team is I took off everyone's attack gear, because we're pretty much stacking attack on everybody. Guaranteed synergy means that this snake dies pretty quickly. And we're also not going to nuke it on turn 3. We're going to nuke it a little bit further in, so it has to last a little bit longer. So everyone except Jean has their weapons removed, including their supports. So they have their lowest attack stat as possible. So turn 2, we got a good hand, because we can again use Rimuru to convert. That's very lucky right there. So 2 stacks, because of all the traits we've got going on. I really like that the new Blanc has turn 2 protection gauge for space. We're going to be using that a lot in the future. So orb change, boom. We'll leave Rimuru here, and we'll actually send his orb last, because he will do the least amount of damage, because we're doing 35k with Jean, 20k with Violet, and then Rimuru does 4. Good hand for Violet here, and now we can get the EX ult, because we can bring Rimuru for Rimuru and use the Rainbow Orbs, and then one more stack of Lumi. And then I think we'll leave it here, because Rimuru will do less damage. 1, 2, 3, or we'll send Violet. That's maybe a misplay right there. I should have sent Rimuru Orbs last. But yeah, he's quite low. There's the stun. It hits Rimuru, which is the best case scenario. Yes, he is an orb changer, but now that we have ults, not a truly big deal. We'll use 2 stacks of Lumi. We'll orb change with her. No, we're not nuking yet, because we don't have enough points. So we need 295 points to nuke. So we have to go at least one more turn of sending full blues before we can do that. It's just, how do we do that without killing the snake? And we do that by just sending Jean away. Go away. We can use the orb change with Violet. Boom. And now we can take Violet out, and now we have a bunch of orbs for Rimuru. So making sure we need to use the green. 2 of these orbs aren't going to happen, so we'll send Rimuru orbs last. So 11k with Blanc, which is a lot, but 4k with Water Rimuru. So now on turn 5, we are ready to nuke. We have 300 skill points. We need 295 again. So we are ready to go. Even though Coleus Rimuru is sealed, we've gotten his full usage. We've used the rainbows, so he doesn't contribute anything else to our damage now. So 4 big time buffs, 1 more stack of Lumi, and then we will ult with Jean, and she will do fairly good damage here. And by fairly good, I mean pretty much damage cap. 4.1, because if you add in the rest of the HP, it does put us slightly over. Or no, almost over. Ooh. So is cap actually 4.6? Okay, well, details. Very close to the cap. 198k, almost 200,000 points right there on a 1-year-old team. So if you've got VOC, it's going to work pretty well. Alright, another single target space nuking. This time we're going physical, but it should be fine. We're going to use the Primal Demon team with the old space Blanc. So every team so far has had a Blanc on it. Violet, we've got the free-to-play Tempest Elite Gobta for our turn 1 convert, because he also has an alt swap, lowers pierce resistance when on his alt swap, has a green orb change, which means we don't have to use Diablo's turn 1, which is big, because making his orb change more expensive is not really what I'm looking to do here today. So, turn 1, convert with Gobta. Alright, cool. Bring Blanc in. We'll use her 2 buffs. Her first skill is buffing pierce power and ult damage, and her second skill is buffing attack for her, and then permanent ult gauge increase for all orbs, which does help her get an EX ult faster, technically. It's just that her first skill is much more impactful for her damage output. So I would always prioritize the first skill, and then if any leftover points you have, then use that for the second skill. But orb change, boom, and boom. The orb change for Misery also lowers pierce resistance, so by using Gobta and Misery together, we can double up on the 5% pierce resistance downs. This is a good hand right there, because we can get Blanc out of here for only, because she only has 1 orb. I'd rather bring her in when she has a lot of orbs to steal, so by swapping her out for Gobta, we can just use a few stacks of her skill. So right here, 1, and then 2, and then we need to leave enough points for the Gobta convert, and boom. Perfect. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll send Gobta last so we don't do too much damage, since he's not getting any damage buff here. He just happens to be physical. And then he gets stunned, unfortunately. So the whole dream of doubling up, not really going to happen. But we left our 2 primary orb changers alone, and Misery has 4 orbs. So now we can use Violet, and now we can use a couple stacks of Blanc's skills and get her really cooking here. So there's 1, and then there's 2, prioritizing the first skill because it helps us do more damage. And as long as we can get some more orbs for her next turn, we're pretty much ready to go. And unfortunately, that doesn't... Well, it does happen technically. So alt swap, we can send Diablo away now and bring in Misery, and then we can just alt swap here for free, and then another stack, and then another stack, and now these 4 orbs, since they're buffed up by Blanc's second skill, this should get us the EX ult. So it was very lucky that we had another Blanc orb incoming when we took Diablo out. So boom, perfect. This will get the EX. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't matter because Gobta's sealed. So she was going to do 200% orb damage anyway. Very lucky we didn't kill. And now, we're ready to go. So 1 more stack, and then we'll bring in Diablo for his 100% physical buff and guaranteed pierce, so we can activate Blanc's pierce power. And then Jeanne comes in for her massive 170% ult damage plus space resistance down. And then we'll start using other skills from Blanc as we have points for, which that's it. So now Blanc nukes, and she does 3.5 million damage. So not quite as much as the Jeanne on Visions of Coleus, so it's a bit lower of a score, but it's still a single target space nuking team that's fairly old. So over, 7 months old now? So if you have it, or you have some semblance of it, you can get that to work. Alright, the final team I have for you for this normal battle is another stacking team. It's an affront to humanity. It's just a whole bunch of blue orb changers. We're using Commander Renard because he can generically lead any type advantage nuker. Weakness strike, ult resistance down. We've got Space Milim as our nuking character. She is skill fused, so she is giving herself also magic attack. If she wasn't, she would just be giving space. We've got the hero for the rewind and crit. Carrion for orb change and crit damage, Guy for ult damage and orb change, and then again Water Rimuru for his orb change. And this team is certainly not going to hit any damage caps, but it's just a bunch of old characters. If you don't have Renard, you could use the Space Veldora that came out with Milim. You could use Visions of Coleus Lumi because she would give the attack stacks to Space Milim and synergy at least, so I mean that would be something as well. There are a number of different protectors you could use that are stacking blue that could, I guess, get the job done, technically. But Milim isn't even an EX character, so we don't need an EX ult for her. So as soon as we get enough points to nuke, we're just going to nuke. And we just need a normal ult. Which here we got 4 oranges, which we wouldn't really convert this hand, so we're just going to send it because why not? Very close to an ult. This hand looks better, though, because we actually have orbs to change. So we will rewind here. And then we will bring Guy in and use his convert because he only has 30 points, and normally we'd bring like 2 different orb changers, but we wouldn't have points for that in the rewind. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This gets us the Milim ult. We can send her away with the crit damage from Carrion and her own Drago buff this turn. And then next turn, if we make back the points, which, okay, sure, we should be able to nuke. So Drago, crit damage, and the space buff / magic buff, or just space, again, if she's not skill fused. And we'll do the 2 stacks of Renard before we send her away. And then we just send 5 greens here, because there's no way we're going to convert this. There's no point in wasting points on it. So you come out, and then we'll send these. Cool, cool, cool. 127 points left over. We need, 80 plus 55, but unfortunately he hit all 3 stuns. So we're stunned for 2 turns. So boom, and then boom. So there's really nothing we could do there. If we didn't get stunned, it would have been fine, maybe, because we already used Carrion's buff. We didn't really care about him, but we need Guy's buff, so we have to wait for Guy to be unstunned. And then we can bring the hero in for her crit buff, and then we're going to nuke. So we'll full orb change there, boom. We've got plenty of points now, because we didn't do anything for 2 turns. But there's nothing else we can use to bump our damage, so we'll just send these orbs first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Lower his health just a little tiny bit extra. And then Milim Nuke does 814. So we're going to get just over 1 million damage here on this run. Well, yeah, 1.1. And certainly not a great run, but it's a whole bunch of very old characters. So if it's what you got, it's what you got. But if you have any other teams that you found to have success in Normal Battle 3 that's not one of these, let me know in the comments below so other people can see that. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.